Prime Minister Mark Carney is expected to unveil an agreement or a memorandum of understanding with Alberta today, which could pave the way for a new oil pipeline in the country.
CTV's Bergeron-Oliver joins us live from Ottawa now with more on this. Annie, good morning. What do we know about the agreement so far? Because it seems to be with Alberta, but the Premier is saying, he's not going to go ahead with it unless he gets approval from BC's Premier and First Nations, and they're saying, we don't want this.
Exactly. So this memorandum of understanding between the Alberta government and the federal government is expected to be signed today in Calgary. Now, what we know so far from sources is that this will set out the framework for an oil pipeline from Alberta to the northern coast of British Columbia. Basically, what it'll say is, as the Prime Minister has pointed out, here are the necessary conditions in order for a pipeline to potentially get built. But the Prime Minister, as you pointed out, is saying, look, we don't want a pipeline unless the province of British Columbia and First Nations agree. Now, both of those right now are not in agreement. They say they do not want a pipeline. However, a pipeline is under federal jurisdiction. So that does raise some questions. Here's what the Prime Minister had to say about the prospect of a pipeline and the memorandum of understanding.
It is about much more than one thing. And fundamentally, it's about building this economy. It's about making Canada more independent, and it's about making Canada more sustainable.
So essentially what the Prime Minister is saying is that this memorandum of understanding is going to set the framework for how a pipeline could get built, but it's not going to guarantee that a pipeline will get built. He's also saying that, look, it's not just about the prospect of a potential pipeline that Alberta wants. It's about more than that. The Prime Minister is trying to frame this memorandum of understanding as a way to increase Canada's, energy exports to Asian markets, to reduce its Canadians' reliance on the United States. But also what the framework is supposed to be doing is it's going to force Alberta to get even stronger when it comes to carbon capture and storage, when it comes to emissions reduction. So while there is potentially going to be the framework for how a pipeline can get built and under what conditions, it's also going to tie Alberta to much more stringent environmental conditions around emissions reduction. And again, this is all coming out later today. Back to you guys at the desk.